So then how do you define Buddhist? So how many of you here are Buddhist? So you're not Buddhist, you're not Buddhist, you're not Buddhist. So you're Buddhist?
Well, it depends how you define it.
That's right.
Is it, do you mean it like definitive by taking refuge? Like at that point, is that like the clock?
So yeah, now the definition. What is Buddhist? Who is Buddhist? What is Buddhist? What does it mean?
It's being on a path.
What does it mean to be a Buddhist?
To be on a path of enlightenment.
Uh-huh.
To benefit all sentient beings.
Yeah. That's true. So what defines the
Not live
Buddhist?
in this life, to live for your next life.
Yeah. For next life. So yeah, those are all part of Buddhist, right? Being a Buddhist.
So, having taken recently the refuge vows,
Mm-hmm.
I think of Buddhism starting for me when I try to have practice.
Mm-hmm.
I try and remember to go for refuge.
Yeah. So those are all part of being Buddhist, right? So what is the actual Buddhist? I mean, the basic requirement, for becoming a Buddhist. So what do you have to have? So Buddhist, to be a Buddhist, you have to take refuge in the Buddha, in the Dharma, and in sangha, right? Taking refuge means seeking protection, help, right? So why do you seek help? Because you are in danger, right? You seek help only when you're in the danger, right? You seek refuge when you're going through difficulties, suffering, in danger, and that's when you take refuge, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what taking refuge is. Alright, so you take refuge. To be a Buddhist, you have to take refuge in the Buddha, in the Dharma, and in the sangha. And why do you take refuge? Because you are going through problems, sufferings, right? Or you're afraid that you might go through all these problems or sufferings in the future, and because you want to avoid that, therefore you take refuge in the Buddha and the Dharma and sangha. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to have that kind of fear, or at least dislike, right? Towards the sufferings. So you should be afraid of suffering. I don't want to, or you say, I don't want to experience that suffering, and therefore I'm going to take refuge. Right? So just like you don't want to go to jail, so therefore you take refuge in a lawyer. Right?
Good luck.
Yeah. So, or you don't want to, experience that disease or sickness, therefore you take refuge in the doctor. Right? So you seek help, to the doctor, you take refuge in the doctor. You take refuge in the nurse. You take refuge in the medicine, because you don't want to go through that disease, the sickness, right? So it's similar to that, because you don't want to go through the sufferings. So here, what kind of sufferings are we talking about? The sufferings that we experience in this life?
Yes.
So when you're taking refuge, because you don't want to experience the suffering, are we talking about the suffering of this life?
All lives.
All lives.
Samsara.
Especially.
Existence.
So in the Buddhism, as a Buddhist, when you take refuge as a Buddhist, you're especially taking refuge because you don't want to go through suffering in the very next life.
Mm.
So this life, whatever sufferings that we have had already, we have already created a cause for that, and we're going to go through, or we have already experienced this life, right? So you don't really have to much worry about this life, suffering of this life. So what you really have to worry about suffering is the suffering of the next life, the immediate next life. And then of course you think about the fallen lives and the life after that, so all those lives, right? But mainly the immediate next life. That's the suffering. You don't want to go through that. So because you don't want to experience the suffering in the immediate next life, therefore you take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. Right? So that's what Buddhist means. To be a Buddhist, you have to take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And how you take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha? What makes you take refuge in the Buddha and Sangha? What causes you to take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha?
Suffering you have initially.
Yeah, so afraid of the suffering, right? Being afraid of suffering or not wanting to experience suffering in the immediate next life. And seeing that Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha has the power to protect you from this suffering. So you have to have those two causes. The fear, not wanting to experience the suffering, especially in the immediate next life, and believing that Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha has the power to protect you. So with these two, then you take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So when you have these two, and with that you take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, then you become Buddhist. Then you are a genuine Buddhist. Until then you are so-called Buddhist. So-called Buddhist. Like me, right? So-called Buddhist. But not really Buddhist. Right? So you understand now, Buddhist? To be Buddhist, what do you have to take? Refuge in
Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha.
Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Why? Because you don't want to experience suffering next life. So in Buddhism, we believe that there is past life and future lives, right? There are past and future lives, and then we believe in this 6 realms, like the lower realms, and then upper realms. So the lower realms are hungry ghost, hell realm, and then animal realms. Those are the lower realms, and those realms, the beings in those realms have a lot more suffering than we do. So we, as a human, we are in an upper realm, and the humans, demigods, and gods. Those are the beings in the upper realm, who has less suffering. Of course, they are suffering, but it's less than the lower realms. So even the sufferings that we experience as a human being, which is very, very minor, in comparison to the sufferings as the animals or hungry ghosts or hell beings, but still we don't want to experience, right? And imagine the sufferings that we may have to go through if we are born in the lower realm. So because we don't want to go through that suffering, therefore we don't want to be born in the lower realm. And so to be protected from being born in the lower realm, we take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So in Buddhism, the way it is explained or defined as Buddhist, being a Buddhist, is being afraid of the sufferings of the lower realms and believing that Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha has the power, so therefore you take refuge in them. So those two, the fear towards the sufferings of the lower realm, and then belief that Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha has the power to protect you. So with that thought, then you take refuge, and then you become a Buddhist. Yes, Karen.
So, what I'm hearing is that people take refuge because they don't want something rather than because they do want something. That doesn't seem like a very good motivation.
Yeah, of course, that's not the best motivation. That's the very least motivation.
I mean, I know for myself, if I want to improve my diet, let's say I want to cut something out, instead of trying to cut something out, what I do is I look for something that, in essence, would replace it. That would be good for me, good for my body.
Yep.
So then I don't miss the thing that I'm trying to cut out. So I'm always looking for something for the positive aspect rather than...
Well, directly you don't want that, but indirectly you also want this. Indirectly you don't want the suffering, but indirectly you want to have happiness. That's like understood. Indirectly you are understood to want to have happiness, because you want to have happiness of the upper realm, and therefore you take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Or you don't want to experience the sufferings of the lower realm, and therefore you take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So it's a similar. And when you take refuge, so when you take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, what does it mean to take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, right? So when you take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, it does just by saying I take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha doesn't mean you'll be protected, right? So after taking refuge in Buddha and Sangha, by saying that I'm going to take refuge in Buddha and Sangha, and believing that they have the power, and being afraid of the sufferings that you don't want to experience in the future, all these, even though you have all that, will you be still protected from suffering?
No.
No, right? So what do you have to do? What do you have to do
What do you have to do to?
to be protected from the suffering?
Oh.
You have to practice.
You have to practice. You have to follow the instructions of the Buddha. You take refuge in the Buddha, but you have to listen to the Buddha. Buddha said, do this, don't do that. And if you do this and if you don't do that, then you will be free from the sufferings. Otherwise, you will not be free from suffering. So you have to follow the teachings of the Buddha.
This is my first time here ever. I've come with my friend,
Yes.
and I feel that all of my life I've been suffering. I've been stuck in this lower realm that you've been talking about, and at this very moment I am experiencing the most trying part of my life, the most suffering I've ever experienced. And I'm wondering how do I escape that even in this life? Do I have to go through this whole life experiencing all this suffering, or is there hope to be happy now?
Yes, definitely there's a hope. So suffering, that we experience is a result, of the cause. It's a result of the negative actions that we have created. And so, of course, we have a lot of sufferings as a human beings, but when you compare with the sufferings of the lower realm, animals, the hungry ghosts, all these beings and hell beings, there's nothing. At least you can say, I'm suffering, right? They cannot even say, animals, they cannot even say, I'm suffering. And you can talk to somebody, you can get advice from somebody, and so forth. So this is so much, more for human beings than animals, right? Animals, they cannot even say that. If they are, if they have a toothache, they cannot say I have a toothache. Right? If they have a headache, they cannot say I have a headache. Please give me aspirin. They can't say for that. But human beings, we can say that. We can talk to people. We can get help medicine. So of course, compared to that, it's much less. And so, suffering that we experience now is a result of our negative karma. And so we have to understand that this is the result of negative karma that I myself created. So I have to go through that suffering. So when you think of the suffering in that way, just by accepting it, by accepting the suffering, it already becomes much less. And then also, because you're going through that, you're purifying those negative karmas that you have created. And that when we go through sufferings, then we purify the negative karmas, negative actions that we have created, which brought this suffering. So then it's very good. Now we're experiencing now, and we don't have to experience in the future. So when we think in that way, then our suffering becomes much less. Of course, there's no way, we can overcome the sufferings in this life, because we have already created the cause in the past life, and we're meeting with the conditions in this life. So when the causes and conditions are all together, then there's no way we can avoid it. So same with happiness. So if you have created the cause for happiness, and there is a condition for happiness, then even if you say, no, I don't want happiness, you still be happy. So same with the suffering. Suffering is the same, because we have created it. So the thing is now is that you understand the sufferings, and then you have to understand what caused you the suffering. So what you can do is then avoid that in the future, in the next life, in the future of this life also, in the future in this life also. And so that way you can reduce the sufferings by accepting, by thinking in that way, by thinking in positive ways like that. So you study and practice and learn more and practice, then of course you can overcome the sufferings that way. Yes.
Does just enduring the suffering
purify your negative actions, or speaking for myself, I mean, suffering has brought me to more, I guess, elevated consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Is that necessary to purify the karma, or is just enduring the suffering and experiencing it?
Well, it's not necessary to go through the suffering in order to purify negative actions. But if you go through the suffering, then negative actions that you created, which brought the suffering, will be purified or will be, gone. And there are practices that you can do, which will purify the negative karma. You don't have to go through the sufferings.
What are some of those practices?
Oh yeah, there's a practice of purification. So we normally, in Buddhism, what it explains about the purification part is that, so you have to think about the negative karma. So you have to think about the negative karma, and especially that those that you can remember. And just by logically, by knowing that I'm going through these sufferings, I can tell that I have created those negative karmas, right? Because I'm suffering. If I hadn't created negative karma, then I will definitely not go through these sufferings, right? So that just the fact that I'm going through this suffering is because I have created negative karma. So definitely there are negative karmas, right? And then also because I am a human being, because I have delusions, and because I have the mindfulness, all these different kind of delusions. Therefore, I have created negative karma. So you have to think about those negative karmas, and especially those that you can remember. Let's say we did something bad. I killed somebody or killed some animal, and then I remember that. Right? So I have to have a very strong feeling of regret, remembering that negative karma. Oh, that was so bad. I should not have done that. That kind of feeling, very strong sense of remorse or regret. One should have that, and then with that, then it says, then you engage in a practice like meditation, generating loving kindness, compassion, or even doing a practice of making prostrations, making offerings, to the holy objects. And then once you have done that, then you make a strong promise. It says, oh, that was so bad. I should not have done that. I'm not going to do that anymore at all. Not even at the cost of my life, I'm going to do that. So you have to make a strong promise. So if you do that, then that negative karma can be purified. And so with that, so you have to have it's called the four opponent powers. So that's called the basis, on which, by developing compassion towards the sentient beings that you have created negative karma, and then by remembering the negative karma and regretting towards that, and then by engaging in a practice of generating love, compassion, or making prostrations, making offerings, and so forth, and then at the end making promise not to create that. So those are the four opponent powers, and if you do with that, then the negative karma will be purified. So then you don't have to go through the suffering. And so that's how, because that's how we can get rid of those negative karmas that were created since being in this lifetime. Otherwise, if we have to go through all the sufferings, to purify those negative karmas, then there's no way we can, we can go through all those sufferings, because there are so many negative karmas that are created. So by engaging in the practice, we can purify lots of those negative karmas. And so if we make even a single prostration, and just making one prostration can purify so much negative karmas and equally accumulate that much more positive karmas also. So when you create positive karma, that also subsides to the negative karma. So more good you do, the more bad will be diminished. And so like that. So anyway, so getting back to Buddhist. We're going outside and bring it back again. Right? So being a Buddhist, right? So Buddhist is what? Taking refuge in the three jewels, right? Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So you know what is Buddhism, right? And now you know what is Buddhist? What is being a Buddhist? Right? Yeah. Are you sure? Just kidding.
I don't know. I'm not sure of much. That's why I'm here, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's why we're all here. So why do we take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha?
Because we recognize that they're the antidote to our suffering.
The
Or
antidote to
possible
our
antidote,
suffering.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That they have the power to lead us from suffering into happiness.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Well, what makes us to have believe in them, that they have the power to protect us? Hmm?
We're believing in the truth of the teaching.
Mm-hmm.
So trusting the teaching that that's true. And also, isn't it, I mean, to me, being a Buddhist means a strong motivation to want to help others. Not just myself and suffering, but if I see the truth about what suffering is and what causes it, then wanting to give that to others as well.
Yes, definitely. That's a better Buddhist. Not just thinking about your own suffering, right? Not just thinking about your own future life, but thinking about others. That's even better Buddhist. Right? So at the very least, you have to have that. And with that part, because you don't want to go through that suffering, because you're afraid of that suffering, therefore you seek refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And so what it means taking refuge or seeking refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha is that you follow Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. You follow Buddha.
It's more than just trusting the what you're here for the teachings. For me, it's practicing the teachings so I know I can trust the teachings.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm trying, like it's me, okay, told me this in the teaching, I need to try it to see if it works. It isn't just taking it on blind faith.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
That's how I trust in the teachings.
Yeah, so you have to see the reasons. Why is it like that, right? Okay, so say Buddha has a power. How does Buddha has a power, right? If somebody says Buddha has this power, that power, but you have to think, right? Is it really true that he has that kind of power? Right? So you use the logical reasonings, reasonings, to find out that he has such and such qualities, right? So that's what I was trying to get to, is by recognizing their qualities. So you have to understand their qualities, right? You have to understand the qualities of the Buddha. If you don't understand his quality, you will not trust in him. You will not believe in him. Right? What makes you believe in him is by recognizing his qualities, his excellent qualities. If he doesn't have that, then you will not believe in him. Because he has that, therefore you. So in order to take refuge in him, you have to believe in him. In order to believe in him, you have to recognize his qualities. So without recognizing your quality, you say, oh yes, I believe in Buddha. Then you're just like, so, So yeah, I believe in Buddha. That's very superficial, not really deeply. You don't deeply believe in Buddha. But in order to really believe in Buddha, you have to understand Buddha's qualities. What makes him to have that power to protect us? Right? So you have to recognize his qualities, Buddha's qualities. So you know Buddha's qualities? What kind of qualities does Buddha have?
Omniscient.
Omniscient, yeah.
Kind and compassionate.
Kind and compassionate, yeah.
Lack of, selflessness.
Selflessness, yeah. Selflessness? I was just going to say selflessness, we're all selfless now. Selfishness, no selfish, right?
Mm-hmm.
So doesn't think about himself alone.
Right.
And what else?
He understands the nature.
Unbiased.
Unbiased, yeah. Can you give an example of unbiased?
The same love towards each being
Uh-huh.
as every other being. Doesn't prefer some over others.
Mm-hmm. That's right. So no matter who you are, right? So I just want to add, like, even if you're somebody who helps him, or even if you're somebody who harms him, he sees you in the same way. He doesn't say, okay, I love this person because this person helped me. He doesn't say, I hate this person because this person harmed me. So that kind of unbiased. So that's a big thing, right? Huge. So because of that, because of those qualities, and he has compassion towards all beings, right? He will help everybody, no matter who they are, whether they have harmed him or helped him, you know. And all these qualities makes him the worthy object of refuge. So we have to understand that, right? And then same with the qualities of the Dharma. So what are the qualities of Dharma?
An understanding.
So what is actual Dharma we're talking about here?
The scriptures, the practice,
The truth of cyclic existence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any more? So what is Dharma? First, maybe we should understand what is Dharma.
The teachings of the Buddha.
Teachings of the Buddha, right? So what teachings of the Buddha, or which part of the teachings of the Buddha really protects us from suffering? So there is teachings of the Buddha, right? Like the scriptures here. And there is the teachings of the Buddha everywhere in the world. Does that protect us from suffering?
I guess the part that protects you is the part that you read, and the part that you understand, and the part that you practice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the realization.
Yeah.
Right? So actually we call it the realization of the true path and true cessation. So the true path and the true cessation are the actual Dharma we're talking about here. But then again, any teachings of the Buddha which explains you know, how to overcome the sufferings and how to achieve happiness, all those teachings help you, right? So if you practice them, right? If you practice them, then all these teachings help you to overcome sufferings. So in different levels, you know. So by practicing generosity, you know, you can gain some kind of happiness, and you can overcome some kind of suffering, but it doesn't overcome all the sufferings from their root. Right? So in order to realize, in order to overcome all the sufferings completely from their root, you have to realize the true path. So you have to have the direct realization of emptiness. Right? So when you have that, then only you can overcome the suffering and the causes of sufferings, the delusions. So that's the actual Dharma. But any kind of Dharma, any teachings, right, of the Buddha that we follow, like the Buddha said, don't kill. If we don't kill, we will have happiness. We'll be free from suffering of killing, right? And he says, don't steal, don't lie, don't envy, and so forth. So all these teachings help in certain level, right? So those, you can say those are all teachings of the Buddha, and those are Dharma. So you take refuge in the Dharma by understanding the qualities of the Dharma. And then same with the sangha, right? What is sangha?
Community.
Like this, the community.
Community, yeah. So that's like, helping, right? The community or the people who help you understand, read, study, practice the Dharma, right? People. And so the actual sangha will be someone who is fully qualified to teach, like someone who have the direct realization of emptiness. So that person will be an actual sangha.
How do you recognize someone who has the realization of emptiness?
It will be written here.
Okay.
So I have a direct realization of emptiness. Oh, okay. No, just kidding. Of course, you wouldn't know. I wouldn't know, you wouldn't know. Ordinary people like us wouldn't be able to tell who has what realization.
So how do we know who?
I know.
who
We don't know. She can be a Buddha,
Right.
she can be a Buddha. He can be a Buddha.
Right.
We don't know. right? Just because he looks very angry, very frustrated, doesn't mean he's not a Buddha. That's not a reason he's not a Buddha. Why? Why do you think?
He'll appear in any guise that will help.
Exactly, right? He can appear in any kind of disguise. And so just because,
Isn't it our own delusion that clouds our ability to see reality anyways?
Yeah, definitely. Even if there is a real Buddha there, yeah.
Buddha, we may see the wrong thing.
Exactly, yeah.
We can't see
Mm-hmm.
the way anything works.
That's right. So it's very, very difficult to tell, of course. So even if somebody is a sangha, we don't know. So that's why it is said that when we say something bad about somebody, if we say something bad to ordinary person, that's less. Of course, it's bad, but it's a less negative karma than saying something bad about a bodhisattva to somebody who is a bodhisattva, and if even more, if it's somebody who is a Buddha. So, which level they are in, that much more negative karma we create when we talk bad about them or we do something bad to them. So that's why it's advised, that we should not do anything bad to anybody, because we don't know who is who, right? And that person can be a Buddha, can be a Bodhisattva, can be, arahat, can be, somebody with some kind of realization, higher than oneself, right? More knowledge, more realization than oneself, then that person is more holy than oneself. So, if you do something bad, you can need more negative karma. And so best not to say anything bad, best not to do anything bad to anybody, because we don't know who that person is. And so the sangha is actual, so it's the person who have realized emptiness directly. It's the actual sangha, right?
But Damchoe, there are actual trainings and teachings to help one realize emptiness.
Yes.
Because if you're looking for a guru, whomever, and not knowing whether they have actually realized emptiness, there are actual trainings and teachings out there to help one at least get closer to obtaining that realization.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Otherwise, you could be chasing your tail.
That's right. It depends. Sometimes I have read in some teachings which says that the teacher you follow, you will be only as good as him or her. You can't be better than the teacher because you're following, right? You're following him or her. So if he is, Bodhisattva, you will only be able to become Bodhisattva. You won't be able to become Buddha. If he is an arahat, you can only be able to become arahat. You won't be able to become Bodhisattva, Arya Bodhisattva, or Buddha, like that. And so again, it depends on the teachings, right? Teachings of the Buddha. So if you follow the teachings of the Buddha, even though he or she is not a Bodhisattva or arahat, but if you follow the teachings of the Buddha, which is the teachings of the Buddha, right? So and then you can become Buddha by following those teachings. And so it's never possible for ordinary beings to tell who the person is. But of course, there are the teachings that he teaches, which are the teachings of the Buddha, and then you can study that and then be realized, have the realization of emptiness, bodhicitta, and so forth. Yeah, definitely.
But could one find the teachings or trainings on emptiness if one doesn't find the person who actually has realized emptiness? Do you follow me? I mean, you could be studying all along and then finally find this, come across, hopefully you cross paths with this person or
yes.
whomever.
Well, that's what I was trying to say, that even if he doesn't have a realization of emptiness, but if he has to have understanding of emptiness.
Sure.
He has to have the intellectual knowledge about emptiness.
Right.
So what emptiness? If it is emptiness, what is it? What is the definition of emptiness? He has to know those things, of course.
Right.
If he doesn't know that, then he wouldn't be able to teach.
Right. Okay.
And of course, there's a difference. A person who has realized emptiness and a person who has not realized emptiness. That's a big difference, right? Even in the way they explain. So there's a difference. But then sometimes then you can be a good talker, and then you can also convince people that you have really realized emptiness, right? The way you talk.
Right.
I can talk very nicely about this. Yeah, emptiness is like this, as if I had a realization of emptiness.
So that's a
And
lesson
then when
in
you
itself.
listen to me,
Right.
and you say, "Oh, he must have really realization of emptiness." The way he talked was so clear and so nice.
Realization is much more than the way you talk. It's the way you live your life. It influences the way you do, like the way that you act.
Yeah.
Right.
So the way you talk also depends how much you understand, right?
Right.
If you have a good understanding, then you can really talk well about it, because you have a good understanding.
Right.
And if you have a realization of that, then you can even talk better. Oh, because at this time you become like this, and you have this kind of sign, and you have this and that. When he talks to you like that, you have this kind of sign, you'll have this sign, and then you think like this and this. So you have to tell that from the experience, right? And so people will think that, oh yeah, he really has realized emptiness. But again, these are all explained in the teachings, right, in the text. So if you study it and then you talk the way it is explained there, then you can also feel like somebody had the realization. But again, still makes difference. Somebody who has realized emptiness and who has not realized emptiness, even though they have the same intellectual knowledge, but the way they explain will make big difference.
You said earlier that anybody can be a Buddha.
Yes. I don't know I said that or not, but yes, anyone can.
You did say it, I think. So if anyone can be a Buddha, anyone on the street can be a Buddha, but they haven't had any teachings, then how are they a Buddha?
Well,
What
I see. Okay, I know what you mean now. I was thinking in a different ways. I was thinking like becoming a Buddha. Of course, anybody can become a Buddha, but anybody can be a Buddha. That's like, yeah, you're right. I said that. Anybody can be a Buddha. That's right. So yeah, of course, the person who is in the street. I mean, if he's a Buddha, then he has already gone through all these teachings, practices, and then he has already realized that all those, teachings, gone through that. So he's just appearing as the person on the street who seems to have no knowledge, nothing, no qualities at all. It's just appearing in like that.
Okay, so you're saying that you do have to have teaching and understanding.
Oh yeah, you have to be already Buddha, and coming in that appearance.
Okay.
So just like that.
But we should also add that, from what I understand, we all have Buddha-like qualities within us, just that we're full of obscurations and delusions.
Yes.
So there's that
The
potential
Buddha
always
nature,
there.
Right.
Yeah.
So to remember,
So that's
like,
different.
round out that whole package of thinking.
Right. Yeah.
That's a different thing, from what you were saying is
Right.
anybody can be Buddha or anybody can become Buddha. So what you're saying is anybody can become Buddha because we have the potential, the Buddha nature, which is the potential
Right.
to become Buddha.
Right.
Yeah. So anybody can be a Buddha means like, we don't know. That person may be a Buddha and just appearing in the form of a beggar or something like that, Like that, yeah. Right?
What is the difference between a Buddha and a Bodhisattva?
Well, Bodhisattva is a still sentient being,
Okay.
beings who has not overcome all the delusions yet, and Buddha is a fully enlightened being, and who has overcome all the delusions, who have an omniscient mind. So Bodhisattva still may have some obscurations.
And then they both are still part of samsara.
No, Buddha is of course not.
No.
Buddha is completely free from all the samsara.
Okay.
And Bodhisattva, of course, there are many different levels of Bodhisattvas. We talk about entering into the path of the Mahayana vehicle. So when you enter into the path of the Mahayana vehicle, then you already become Bodhisattva. And you already Bodhisattva. But you don't have all those so many realizations you are yet to achieve. You don't have to have. You don't even have. Some Bodhisattvas don't even have a direct realization of emptiness. Some even don't have a realization of emptiness. They haven't even realized emptiness, let alone realizing it directly, or all those things. And then with the direct realization of emptiness, then you overcome delusions. Different level of delusions, like from the gross to the subtler. There are delusions. That in our mind we have many different kinds and different level. So the gross ones and then the subtle ones, And so as you realize emptiness directly, then more and more you meditate, more and more you practice, and then more and more you'll be able to overcome the subtler and subtler ones. And so when you have overcome the subtlest delusion, which we don't even realize as a delusion right now, that kind of delusion, even when that is completely eliminated, then you become Buddha. And so Bodhisattva, we call it the path. We have divided like the path of accumulation, path of preparation, path of seeing, path of meditation, and path of normal learning. And so you have to go through all this. So already from the beginning of the path of accumulation, you're already Bodhisattva. And then when you reach the path of seeing, where you see the emptiness directly, and that time you become Arya Bodhisattva, spiritual Bodhisattva. And then even there, there's certain different levels that we call it that 10 grounds. And then you go through that also all these different grounds and have a different level of bodhisattvas. And so all these are bodhisattvas. The Buddha is all the way at the top. So when you overcome all the delusions, have eliminated all the obstructions, and have achieved all the knowledge, then you become Buddha.
And my understanding was that Buddha is no longer subject to rebirth. Is that true?
That's right.
And then, but Bodhisattva chooses rebirth in order to help
yes.
people. Okay.
So and so then again that depends. Not at the beginning level of the Bodhisattva. So you still might have to go through through the karma and delusion. But as you reach higher level of Bodhisattva, then you can choose.
Okay.
And you can say, okay, I'm going to be born such and such, or I don't want to be born, I'm going to go here, I'm going to go there. They can choose. So, but Buddha, of course, no, you don't have to be born at all.
But you can be?
You can be. That's intentionally. Yeah, and then you can take a birth of a human being or even an animal, and even, inanimate objects like that. Any other questions?
What's Bodhichitta?
Bodhichitta. Well, in English, we can call it altruistic mind. Well, it's a mind, a thought, wanting to become Buddha. And you say, okay, I want to, I don't want to suffer. I want to be free from sufferings. And so, just like me, all these other beings are same in wanting to be happy and not wanting any suffering. And so, just like me, they don't want to suffer. So, just as I wish for myself not to be free, not to experience any suffering, I want others to not experience any suffering. And then you think, why you have to care about that? Because they have been so kind to you. Okay, so now, what is the best way of caring about them? What is the best way to help them? Is to eliminate all their sufferings completely. So how can you do that? Can you do that now? No, of course, right? Not even of yourself, let alone of all these numberless beings, and not of yourself, even yourselves. And so only so then you search, who has that power? Who can do that? Then upon searching, you find out that only Buddha. When you become omniscient, then you know exactly what they need, right? And exactly how you can help them and so forth. So when you know that, then you can help them fully, without any limitation, right? You can help them. So you say, oh yeah, so only if I become Buddha, then I can help them completely. So therefore I want to become Buddha. Not for myself, but in order to help these beings. When you have that thought, I want to become Buddha to benefit sentient beings, then that's called Bodhichitta. That mind is called Bodhichitta. Wanting to become Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. So when you have that wish, then you have bodhicitta. So that's something that we have to study, and then practice and meditate on it, in order to have that actual bodhicitta, the realization of bodhicitta. So again, the realization, just knowing what I'm telling you is intellectual knowledge about bodhicitta. The realization is different. Understanding and realizing. Last week we talked about that, right? So realizing and understanding. What's the difference?
Realizing it's a part of your experience, and understanding, you just know about it. You can talk about it, but you don't really experience it.
Yeah, that's true. Right? So realization, so experience, but that has to come through practice meditation. right? Through practicing, through meditating, when you familiarize your mind with that completely, then that's called the realization. Right? Okay, so we're all the way up to Bodhichitta and almost a Buddha now. I was still staying down in the Buddhism, being a Buddhist. No,
But
that's really important to
just
understand.
all people that are bodhisattvas must already have bodhicitta, correct?
Yes,
Yes.
definitely. You can't be bodhisattva without bodhicitta. If you don't have bodhicitta, then you are not bodhisattva.
But you can have bodhicitta and not be bodhisattva.
For example?
For example,
No, there is, but I want to find out from you.
well, I don't intellectually know of an example, but
No, not logically. I don't know either, but logically I know.
so, any person that perhaps has had whatever experience that, even on a small level, you could have the mind of bodhicitta if, say, you've had whatever experience, a negative experience, and then as you meditate, you not only wish to end it for yourself, but you would wish that no one else could experience that. And then you make it bigger.
That's true. That's a good mind. That's a very positive, very good mind. But that's not bodhicitta. Like I explained earlier, bodhicitta means wishing to become Buddha. So you have to have that wish, wishing to become Buddha to benefit sentient beings. That's called bodhicitta. So not wanting others to have suffering and wanting others to be happy, that's very good mind, but that's not bodhicitta. So if you have that wish, like the real, the wish, wanting that, wanting to become Buddha to benefit others sentient beings, when you have that, then that's called bodhicitta.
So the intent.
Yes.
It's really intent.
So if you have a bodhicitta, then you don't have to be bodhisattva, right?
Correct. Because
so in the level, and in the case of sentient beings, that is true that if you have bodhicitta, then you have to be bodhisattva. Then you are bodhisattva. If you have bodhicitta, then you are bodhisattva.
Because it's awakened mind, right?
Well, because I can, it can be also because where we debate, in the debate, we say if you have a bodhicitta, then you don't necessarily you have to be bodhisattva, because if you're a bodhisattva, you have to be sentient being. But like Buddha is not sentient beings, but has a bodhicitta. Buddha has bodhicitta, but he's not bodhisattva. Because if you're a bodhisattva, you have to be sentient being. And Buddha is not sentient being. Therefore, Buddha is not bodhisattva.
so he's the example of bodhicitta.
Exactly, yeah.
Wait a minute, but the Buddha doesn't wish to become enlightened, he's already enlightened. So he's missing the wishing to become Buddha because he's already there. He doesn't have bodhicitta.
We're developing bodhicitta.
That's a good point. Well, Buddha, again, it's very interesting. Also, it's it's a big topic about in the debate. So Buddha doesn't have Buddha. We say Buddha has a wish to become, wish to be Buddha to benefit sentient beings, because Buddha has a wish for sentient beings to become Buddha. So that's also a wish, right? Wish to become Buddha for sentient beings, not for himself, but for sentient beings. And so they interpret it that way. Of course, he doesn't have. So therefore, the main point is to benefit sentient beings. That is the bodhicitta. But you see that only Buddha has that power. So therefore, you want to become Buddha to benefit sentient beings. He's already Buddha, but he still have that wish, to benefit sentient beings all the time. Therefore, he has a bodhicitta. And you're right, when you say, because he doesn't have to become Buddha. He's already a Buddha. And so that's the way I explain it. That's what the explanation is. And also we talk about, like, Buddha has eliminated all the obstructions, right? Has Buddha eliminated all the obstructions?
Yes.
He has no obstructions.
Right. Apparently so, yeah.
Did he eliminate your obstruction also?
His own.
Huh?
His own.
Not yet.
No, but he has eliminated all obstructions, right? You
No,
said
we have
all
to go
obstructions.
through
Oh,
that.
his own.
His own. That's a trick question, Damchoe.
Yeah, that's the
That's a trick question.
thing. Yeah, Buddha has overcome all the obstructions. Then Buddha has not overcome all the obstructions because he has not overcome your obstruction.
Well, then we would have nothing to do.
Huh?
He can't do that anyway.
Right, because you can't change your own.
Yeah, no. He has overcome your obstruction, right? He has overcome your obstruction.
But I have to practice it. I
You have to practice
realize
it, yeah.
We
Yeah.
did have a job.
So if he hasn't overcome your obstruction,
She's
then he
like,
hasn't
"Be bored."
overcome some obstruction. Your obstruction. No, just kidding. We use that kind of analysis in debate. So people say, so okay, now has he overcome or has not overcome? Okay, go ahead.
So to go from bodhisattva to being a Buddha,
Mm-hmm.
that practice of doing that would be the complete smashing of all delusions and all obstructions and all afflictions
Mhm.
and okay,
There's lots of layers.
yeah.
There's
Just
lots
trying
of
to
levels.
understand
Yeah.
how that happens.
Yeah, if you try to understand all at once, your head will just
Explode.
kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
It gets kind of messy.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else?
But it's happened. Like, so the relics were here this weekend, and I was reading about some of the masters, the relics, and at least 2 of them achieved Buddhahood
Mm-hmm.
in a short lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
One of them, and I can't remember all of the names, but had a very difficult, like, life full of suffering and abuse, and then they didn't really say anything about the other one. Just that
The other 43?
Yeah, just that he. Well, I mean, just that he had also achieved it in a short lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I've heard it many times in kind of different Dharma talks, like suffering is the way. Like, not about eliminating, like going into it, fully accepting it and embracing it, because that's the way to enlightenment. So I guess I'm asking for clarification on that.
Mm.
Like,
If suffering is the way, you mean?
yeah.
Trying to get rid of
Like, instead of eliminating it, like,
Mhm.
is the elimination of it like fully immersing yourself into it and realizing that
Well, so when you experience the suffering, then you will not want to experience it, right? You will not want to experience it in the future. So if you haven't gone through, if you haven't faced the suffering, then you will not have that wish, right? So it is, and then also, when you face the suffering, then then it makes you to think about the cause of the sufferings. So what caused this suffering, and what can I do to not experience this kind of suffering again in the future? So when you think about that, then you are hitting to the cause of the suffering. So what is the cause of the suffering? This is the cause of the suffering. Delusions and negative karmas are the cause of the suffering. And so then you target it towards eliminating that. When you eliminate that, then the suffering goes away by itself. If there's no cause, there cannot be result, right? So when you eliminate the cause, you can't have the suffering. So what made them to engage in that practice is the suffering. It's the experience of suffering. If their life was so enjoyable, full of joy and everything they need was there, then they would not think about practicing Dharma. Because that was not there, and instead they had to go through a lot of sufferings, and that made them think about the suffering, think about the Dharma. So that's what brought them to the Dharma. That's what it's saying. It's not mean like you have to experience the suffering. You don't have to experience the suffering, but when you go through the suffering, then it will make you realize that what brought the suffering. And then it will make you to think of overcoming the cause of the sufferings. So that is why it is good to experience suffering in that sense. Yeah, go ahead.
Me?
Yes.
Right, because I was just thinking, because the Buddha was raised in a very good home, had everything he wanted. So the Buddha didn't suffer maybe the way other people suffer that way. So you wouldn't have to experience certain kinds of suffering to understand that suffering exists and how it exists and why it exists and all that.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah, that definitely that's true, but in the case of the Buddha, it's again a little bit different, well, Buddha has a very enjoyable life, he never saw the suffering, until that point, he never saw the suffering, so he didn't know. See, until then, he didn't think about practicing Dharma, he didn't think about escaping, he was already training to become a king, right? He was going through all that lessons, being expert in archery and all these things, so he was like, preparing to become king. But then suddenly when he went out and then saw all these sufferings, then he realized that, oh, there's so much suffering there, and then how do I overcome those sufferings? So even though I have this wonderful life and enjoyable life, but this is not going to last forever. Someday it's going to come to end. And then when it ends, I'm going to go through all these sufferings. Just like these people who are dying are going through that suffering. So even though he's not going through that, he understood that, right? And then because he wants to avoid that. And so he saw people dying, he saw people becoming old. And I don't know if you remember the story of the Buddha. He even didn't know people grow old. So then he asked the chariot, oh, people grow old? He said, yes, everybody who are born, they have to grow old. And because he was in the palace, he was always surrounded by young and beautiful people all the time. And if the servants, if they get old, they kick him out. They kick them out. And the king will kick them out, so that the prince will not see the old age suffering. And they replace with all the new ones, the beautiful, young and happy people all the time. So he didn't let them see. So when he went out and saw the suffering, then he entered the path. Otherwise, he will not. So you see, same there also.
Yeah.
The suffering leads you to engage in the Dharma practice.
Oh, I was just going to say that experiencing suffering too helps you to generate compassion towards others. When you like you see how suffering makes you act or anything like that, and then you can see that in other people. You realize that this isn't a bad person. This is a person just like me. They want to be happy and they want to be free from suffering, and they're suffering so much.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
No, I was going to say the same as the gentleman in the front. Empathy, and also
empathy. Yeah.
Stretching that a little further, then that sort of breaks down the concept of the I, of the self, which then can seep into, I guess, emptiness, getting back to emptiness again.
Yeah.
So.
Are you sure you're going to get there again?
I know you don't want to go there.
Well, that's really the root of all suffering, isn't it? Is the misunderstanding of self.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, the misunderstanding of self, of all the objects of the self and phenomena. So phenomena is all the other things, self is not self. Yeah, so because of that, then we engage in all these delusions, negative karmas.
Right.
So are you all Buddhists now?
Oh, we got it all back then.
So when people ask you, what is being Buddhist, what will you say? Who is Buddhist and who is not Buddhist? Right?
Taking refuge in the
Taking
Buddha,
refuge.
Dharma, and sangha.
Yeah. Are you Buddhist?
Yes.
You are?
Yes.
Good. Are you Buddhist? Are you Buddhist?
Yep.
Oh. I'm still doubting if I'm Buddhist or not. Yes.
But Damchoe, that's the thing. So I've heard different theories. So, I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Have I taken actual refuge? No, because from my understanding, it's like you should really watch a teacher for a number of years. I could be going off in a different direction now, but, so to answer your question for myself, I would consider myself, yes, in theory, to some degree, a Buddhist. I'm listening, I'm opening, I'm willing to learn and engage. But, according to, am I only going to be labeled a Buddhist once I take actual refuge? Well, then, I don't see myself that way. Eventually I will. I'm sure I will, but I'm sort of just still sitting back, observing. I don't personally move in an emotional way. I kind of want to watch something logically for a while.
Yeah, no.
Because
That's
I don't
good.
want to have to go back on my word.
Mhm.
You know, I don't want to throw something away that I take
Exactly.
it seriously. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's good. It's not like, it's not you have to take a refuge vow in order to be a Buddhist. You don't
Right.
have to do that.
okay,
The most important thing is understanding about the suffering, right?
Right.
Understanding, most important thing is having the causes of the taking refuge. The cause is to be afraid of the sufferings, especially of the lower realms, and to believe that Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha has the power to protect you from those sufferings, right? And so if you have that, then you are Buddhist, right? So then then you can become a Buddhist. If you have that, then you can become a Buddhist. Right? And then with that, then you take refuge in the Buddha. Then you're a Buddhist.
but at the very end of our life, it's really the
So
Dharma.
then
that
again, what does
belongs.
it mean by taking a refuge in the Buddhist? Taking refuge in the Buddha. What does it mean to take refuge in the Buddha?
It means recognizing that the Buddhist teachings have the power to remove suffering.
Uh-huh. So taking refuge in Buddha is like asking Buddha to protect you, right?
Right.
To protect you, from these sufferings. That means taking refuge in the Buddha, right? So why will you ask him?
Did you say what?
What?
or
Why will you ask
Why?
him?
Why?
Why will you ask him to protect you? Because you see the qualities in him, right? And what kind of qualities does it have that will protect you? So that qualities that we talked about, right?
Yeah, compassion. And
Yeah, compassion, all that, yeah, the
Realization.
unbiased, all these things.
Right.
Will that protect you from suffering?
No.
No, right? So what protects you from suffering?
The teachings that we practice.
That's
You
true.
The
know,
Dharma
that he's
The
Dharma.
teachings of the Buddha that we follow.
that we have to do.
So yeah, we
We
follow.
have to do.
If we follow the teachings,
Right.
then we'll be protected.
Right.
So even though Buddha has those qualities, all these things, but if we don't follow, we will not be protected. So I am thinking, being a Buddhist means with all that, following Buddha's teaching, following Buddha's instruction, following the Buddha. If you do that, then you're a Buddhist. Then you'll be protected. Right? Then you'll be protected if you follow Buddha. So
Because Buddha can't just remove it.
that's
You
right.
gotta
Buddha
do it
can't
yourself.
take away
You
suffering.
gotta do it
Right.
yourself.
Yep.
It's self-responsibility.
Yes.
Yeah. It's not putting the blame on anything and putting the big girl pants on and.
Yeah.
You got to be the driver. You can't be in the back seat of the
That's
the
true.
car. Got to be behind the wheel.
So this is, we're here to discuss about all these different teachings, but basically we're just discussing at the fundamental, at the basic level, right? So don't go all the way up
No
to emptiness.
No.
All right, next week.
Bodhichitta, okay,
We
so
are-
don't go to emptiness.
You got two more sessions before we get to the emptiness.
I'm always near ready for emptiness. Keep it the basic.
Keep it basic, yes. So, any other questions?
Yes.
Yes.
Dharma protectors, who are they?
They are Dharma protectors. You said it. No, just kidding.
Because I was reading something and then somebody was asking the difference between a Dharma protector and a meditational deity.
Yeah.
So you can answer any part of that.
Yeah, that's okay because what was the advertisement on the Wednesday teaching, Wednesday class was about images, right? So we can talk about a little bit about images of different Buddhas. Well, anyway, Dharma protector can be different kind of beings. Can be enlightened being, can be ordinary being, can be some kind of beings with some kind of powers, like the spirits, and some kind of beings, like the spirits, they have certain powers, like Nagas, the spirits, they have certain powers. Yeah. And if they use their power in a good way, it can be good. If they use their power in a bad way to harm others, then they can harm a lot of beings, right? So, there are stories about how these Buddhas tamed these spirits, to become a good person and use their power for good things. So if you are practicing Dharma, then they will help you. They will be there to help you, protect you, from negative forces. And so that can be a spirit, turned into a Dharma protector. So like same, like ordinary beings, you and me, so let's say somebody with some knowledge, wealth, power, so that kind of person can be helpful, right? If he use his, knowledge, wealth, and power in a good way, he can be a good. So if you put use in a bad way, then it can be bad also, right? And then let's say these beings, with that kind of power, knowledge, and wealth, turn into a good person by the teachings of the Buddha. So some holy beings, they came across with a holy being, and that person taught them to become a good person, right? And then after that, they follow that, and then they use their powers, their power, the wealth, the knowledge, for the benefit of sentient beings. Then they are like a Dharma protector. So Dharma protector are like the spirit, like could be a spirit, beings like that, and could be also Buddha. So Buddha can also appear in the form of Dharma protector to protect people who are practicing Dharma. So they have certain powers, which can be used to drive away the negative forces, and bring a success in your practice. So those are Dharma protectors. So Dharma protector can be human, can be ordinary beings, or can be also Buddha, enlightened beings. And then deities are definitely enlightened beings. So deity has to be a Buddha. So Buddha appearing in that can be a wrathful or peaceful aspect of the Buddha, and of the enjoyment body. We call it enjoyment body. That's the deity. So deity, and usually the deity, which we call it tutelary deity. So that's mostly used for your meditation. So the Buddha that you used, for your practice, for your meditation, that's called deity. So it's like we call it's a commitment being. So it's called wisdom being and commitment being. Last time I talked a little bit about it. So commitment beings is the beings that you visualize, that you use, to do your practice. And the Buddha appearing in that form, and then you visualize that and do your practice of meditations. So that's deity.
So that would be like Manjushri and Tara.
Tara,
and,
okay.
Yeah,
Vajrapani, like that,
Okay.
So those would be the deity. And Buddha Shakyamuni can be also deity.
Question about deities.
Yes.
Or I've heard two different things that seem slightly contrary. One is that each person becomes a Buddha. They're still individual and separate from every other Buddha.
Yes.
Right. But then I've also heard that the Buddhas are inseparable from each other, and so I'm not sure of the meaning of those two statements.
Well, what I think is. That Buddhas, of course, you can become Buddha, he can become Buddha, so you are, of course, you're an individual person, right? So when you become Buddha, you'll be, the different Buddha, and when he becomes Buddha, he'll be different Buddha. But inseparable means like, in terms of the knowledge, realization, everything will be exactly the same. What you know, he will know. What he knows, you will know. So it will not, it will not be separable. So you can't say, your Buddhahood is different from his Buddhahood. Whatever you have is exactly going to be the same. So you will have everything, and he will have everything. So it's same, exactly the same as what you have, what he has. So that's why that's the intention. Like I say, human beings, we don't have exactly the same. Who have this or that. Like even our faces are not the same, right? None of our faces are the same, right? Do we find anybody? Even like twins, they have little differences. Identical twins, right? They have little differences. We can't tell, but the mother can tell. So there's some differences. So something like that. So you can that will be different, but Buddhas don't have any in terms of that knowledge. So again, also like Manjushri, when you talk about Manjushri or Avalokiteshvara, Manjushri is the wisdom of the Buddha appearing in the form of a deity, right? And so that can be anybody, right? So your wisdom appearing in the form of a deity will be Manjushri, and his wisdom appearing in the form of a deity, he's like a fully understanding of wisdom and realizing emptiness, that appearing in the form of deity is Manjushri, right? So Manjushri is that deity, and so it could be yours, could be his, so it will be same, right? So that's why I think that's what I think, is called inseparable. But again, you're different beings. You're you and he's he, so you're different beings. So you're in the individual Buddhas.
Would you repeat that?
Which part?
The part about Manjushri.
Oh, Manjushri. We say Manjushri is a deity. The Buddha's wisdom. Buddha has a wisdom, right? And Buddha has compassion. So Buddha's wisdom is a mind, right? So that took the form. That took the physical form and become Manjushri. So because Manjushri is embodiment of all the Buddha's wisdom. Embodiment means like I appear. That wisdom is which is a consciousness, right? It's a formless, but then when that appear in the form, it's a Manjushri. So taking the physical form of all the Buddha's wisdom. So that's called Manjushri. And then Tara is like the activity, and Avalokiteshvara is the compassion, and Vajrapani is the power and things like that. So there are many deities, there's the embodiment of Buddhas and this and that knowledges.
I thought you said something in addition to that. I don't know how to ask the question. Something about...
So your wisdom, when you become Buddha, and your wisdom appearing in the form of the deity will be Manjushri. And then her wisdom, when she becomes Buddha, her wisdom appearing in the form of a deity will be Manjushri also. And so in that sense, you'll be inseparable.
I see.
Yeah, but you are you and she's her, so you're different beings. So but you're so it's a different Buddhas, different beings, different Buddhas, but your knowledge are also all these inseparable. And so same thing about Buddhas, the body, speech, mind, inseparable, because body still knows body also knows. Our body doesn't know, right? Only our mind knows. Body doesn't know. Body can only move or do things, but it will not know the object, right? It will not say this is door, or this is table, or this is ceiling. It won't say that. So that will be the mind. So, but Buddha's body can say that, and Buddha's speech can say that also. So the speech can appear in the form. The speech can appear in the form, and then the mind can appear in a form. So Buddha's, of course, so all these different qualities, which makes him the worthy object of refuge. All these powers, qualities,
So we can invoke the deities by saying mantras, making offerings, and okay.
Invoking is again is in the mind. So your mind have to do the visualization. So when you invoke, of course you say the prayers. It says, please come here. You say, please come here, and then also your mind has to think that they are there. Of course, if you, and this is, and it's again also, what you visualize, what we call the commitment being, and then that's called the wisdom beings, which are the actual beings, residing in their actual abode or the place, and then you ask them to come also. So you have the visualized beings, commitment beings, so visualized beings there, and then the actual beings there. Then you imagine coming there and becoming one. And so that's when you invoke. So you invoke, the wisdom beings, the actual beings, actual Buddhas. Ask them to come there. Right? Come to the beings that you have visualized. So you have to visualize. Right. You have to visualize the beings there,
right.
The deity, and then the actual deity is somewhere else, and then you invoke, the actual deity and come, and they dissolve into each other and become one. And then when you make offerings and prostrations and all the prayers, and at the end you have to dissolve it. Right? So when you dissolve, you send that the wisdom beings go back to their place. Commitment beings dissolve back into you, dissolve into you, or into the deity that you have visualized. So like that. So that's the invocation. Again, when you do that, you visualize with your mind also, thinking that they come and they're being there.
So is that what's meant by, is it summoning the field? What, I forget the term. Invoking the field or something? Is that what's meant by that? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. That's right, invocation.
Do you have to invoke like the Buddha or the masters through a deity? Like, can't you just visualize their gifts or what they've known just coming to you?
Yeah,
Or-
you can do that. You can do that. So again, it just helps your mind, to think that they're there, and you're making prostration to them, and you're making offerings to them. And because your mind thinks that, you believe in it, and then when you make the offerings, and then it becomes more powerful. But of course, there isn't place where there's no Buddha. So you can make prostration anywhere, and you'll be making prostration to Buddha, right? Again, but if you think with your mind, so there's a Buddha here, so I'm going to make prostration to Buddha. If you think like that, that makes difference. If you just make prostration, it's prostration. Okay, you make prostration, but you have to have some belief in your mind, because I'm going to make prostration to this table, because there's Buddha there, right? That if you say, because there's Buddha there, if your mind thinks that, believes that there's Buddha there, therefore I'm going to make prostration to this table.
So it's training.
Then you
your
create
mind.
the merit of making prostration to Buddha. But if you say, okay, it's good for my body, I'm going to make prostration.
Well, it is good for your body.
I need to
but
stretch.
Yeah, that's right. I don't have time to go to the gym. I'm going to make
Your body's
prostration.
gonna fall apart.
Going to get a workout, by making prostration. So if you think like, of course, that's, even if you don't, if you do like that, there is a Buddha there, right? So there is a Buddha there. Even if you do with that thought, there's a Buddha there, but you don't create the merit of making prostration to Buddha.
Is that considered negative karma to do it that way?
That's a negative, not really negative. I wouldn't say that's negative, but that's less positive karma.
Yeah.
Even though if you did that with that, you're still making prostration.
Right.
You say, okay, instead of going to the gym, I will make prostration, and that will become a workout for my body, and also will be, meritorious. So if you think like that, and then with that, so your mind is also involved in shaping your body, as well as accumulating merit. Then you're not fully doing that, but you still create merit, of course.
Yeah.
So even if you don't have any intention, and you just happen to make prostration, that also creates merit. You have heard about these stories, right? About when the person wanted to become monk and he couldn't become monk because they didn't see any merit in him to become a monk, and Buddha, only Buddha was able to see. Like the Bodhisattvas, there were only limitation, right? The difference of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Bodhisattvas, they have their knowledge, their realization is limited. They can only realize to, their omniscience is limited. They can only see to certain distance, but they can't see all the way back. Buddha can see. So when Buddha saw that, and then he said, he has a merit. The merit that he has is from from circumambulating a stupa when he was born as a bug. Right? So that merit enabled him to become a monk. And it was interesting last time when I might have heard, but I never kept in my mind. But last time when Rinpoche was here, he talked about many people becoming monk at the time of Buddha. And during the time of the Buddha, when you become monk, you can only become monk if you are going to become arahat in that lifetime. So if they don't see that potential in you, then they will not allow you to become monk. So whoever became monk at the time of the Buddha, they all became arahat in that very lifetime.
Okay. When they all died.
And so then it makes sense, right? Then because in my mind I was thinking, that old man, poor old man, why didn't they let him become monk? Right? Because Mangalyana, Shariputra, and Ananda, they didn't see that he has the merit. And they, of course, through their clairvoyance, they can know, they can tell that he doesn't have a merit, so he's not going to become arahat, so what is the point of becoming monk? So that's why they didn't allow him to become monk. But then when Buddha saw all this like many lifetimes before, when he was born as a bud, he happened to circumambulate stupa accidentally. And while he was searching for food,
I think you went the right direction. Huh? Could have gone the other way.
Exactly, right.
Would have been like,
So
jeez.
would have missed the chance, right?
Yeah, exactly. Missed that one.
So that kind of merit, right? So even if you're making prostration to work out, still very good. So 100 prostration a day will keep your body very fit. So yeah, of course, the reason why I was saying was that because there's a Buddha everywhere, right? So there's Buddha everywhere. Again, there's a controversy there. If you say that Buddha is everywhere, then you're sitting on a Buddha, right? you're sitting on a Buddha, you're walking on a Buddha, and it's too much. It's a very bad negative karma, right?
It's also insightful, Damchoe, that even when we were seeing some of the bodhisattvas, even though they may have had some type of clairvoyance, they still had limitations.
That's right, yeah.
So that even though I don't have clairvoyance, not that I know of, but you know what I mean? Like, even if you think, oh, I got that, then it's almost a dance, because you got to realize, no, there's more beyond that, or you can just,
in
that
our
can
case,
inflate the ego, it can backfire in a way, anyway.
Yeah, in our case, I don't even remember what I did exactly yesterday.
Right, I remember now.
And then like 1 week ago, 1 month ago, 1 year ago,
Right,
most of that I don't remember.
right.
Some people remember, but I don't remember, and our, like, that can tell how limited our knowledge, our understanding is, our memory is. Well, Buddhas can remember like past life, the past life, million lives before.
Wow. I didn't think of that.
Okay, any other questions?
Question.
Yes, Wendy.
Could you define the two terms, arahat and Arya, and also what's the difference between the two?
Yes, the arahat. Arahat is a four destroyer. We call it, the dachompa, which means four destroyer. So destroyed the four. So the four here is the enemy, right? The four means enemy, and enemy here is the delusions. Then the self-grasping ignorance. So who has completely eliminated that? That's called the arahat, four destroyer. So Arya is someone who has realized emptiness directly. So arahat is someone who has completely destroyed all the delusions and who is completely free of all the sufferings. So free of samsara. So that's arahat. So Arya is not necessarily free from suffering and has not overcome all the delusions yet.
But they've realized emptiness.
But they have realized emptiness directly.
How could they realize emptiness?
So they realize emptiness directly, and with that realization, then they eventually, eliminate all the delusions. So in order to eliminate all the delusions completely, you have to realize emptiness directly. Direct realization of emptiness is the only tool that can overcome all the obstruction,
Right. Okay.
all the delusions.
Yeah.
So first you have to realize emptiness directly. That's when you become Arya,
Okay.
and then with that, then you completely destroy all the delusions. That's when you become arahat.
So Arya comes first? And
Yes,
Arahat
the arahat
later.
comes later. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So Arya, then there is the Arya, heroes, soldiers, and the Arya Bodhisattva, and so the Arahat Bodhisattva. The Arahat Bodhisattva is same as Buddha. So if you are a Bodhisattva who has overcome all the obstructions, then you're already Buddha. So Buddha is a four destroyer also, and Arahat also, but not of the heroes or social realizers. The social heroes, Arahat and social realizers Arahat are not Buddha. They have overcome the delusions, but not the obstructions, all the obstructions.
I'm sorry, Damchoe, I didn't quite hear what you're saying. You're saying so-called realized. What did you say? You were talking so fast.
Oh, no, the Arya Bodhisattva,
Yeah?
Arya Bodhisattva and the Arahat Bodhisattva. And so Arahat Bodhisattva is someone who have overcome all the delusions, all the obstructions. Right? So that would be same as the Buddha.
Okay.
Yeah. Buddha is the Arahat also.
Right.
So arahat means four destroyers. So somebody who has destroyed the four is the delusion.
Okay.
So Buddha is also arahat, but the healers arahat. There's a healers arahat.
Heroes?
Healers.
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 Hearers.
Hearers.
Hearers. Okay,
Hearers.
sorry, that's
Hearer.
S.
Healers. So healers arahat and the solitary realizers arahat.
Okay.
So those are the lower paths.
The hearers and what was the second one?
Solitary realizer.
Solitary realizer. Okay.
Yeah. So solitary realizers in arahat, they're also arahat. They have overcome the delusions.
Uh-huh.
So they're completely free from all the sufferings, but they don't have all the knowledges. They haven't overcome all the obstructions. So, so there's a delusion, and then the imprints left by the delusions. So those can also obstruct you. So because of that, you're not able to see everything. So the omniscient mind, you're not able to achieve the omniscient mind. Omniscient is the mind that knows everything, right? So you're not able to achieve omniscient mind because you have those imprints or latencies left by those delusions. And they have overcome the delusion, but there's the latencies of those delusions. And and so because of that, you're not able to see everything as they are. And you're not able to have the omniscient mind. So when you have overcome that, then you'll have the omniscient mind. So the omniscient mind that has no limitation, you know everything. So that's when when you become Buddha. Only when you become Buddha, then you achieve the omniscient mind. Yeah.
So that means the difference between the arahat and the Buddha is Bodhichitta. The arahat doesn't have Bodhichitta, but they have.
Oh well, also because the one has the obstruction and one doesn't have obstruction. So the arahat, the heroes arahat, still have obstructions.
Oh, okay.
They don't have the delusions. So they don't have the deluded obstructions, but they have obstruction to knowledge.
Oh, okay.
Some of the obstruction to knowledge, and so they still haven't abandoned that. Therefore, they don't have the omniscient mind.
So the bodhisattvas are still subject to karma. Yes?
Yes, if you're at the lower level. So
Okay.
Bodhisattva has like big
Many
range of levels.
Okay.
So from the path of accumulation, path of preparation, path of seeing, path of meditation. And so I think it's in the path of preparation or path of seeing. Then you control the karma. Karma doesn't control you
Okay.
anymore. But we, ordinary beings, we are controlled by the karma. We have nothing. There's nothing we can do. It's almost like there's no free will, right?
Yeah.
Almost like, but it can't still say that you don't have to. You lose again in debate if you say that.
But it's interesting that that karma is in control of us, because it seems like there's why couldn't I just say, okay, I think I've done my bit here, I've suffered in this category, so now I want to not have to suffer that again. Like, we're always under the...
Well, what it means
we can always, past stuff could come up from like a million lifetimes ago, and
Yes.
that's a lot. So there's some sort of trigger point, it seems. It seems like it's almost not planned out.
It
you know what I'm
is the habituation.
Yeah.
The habituation, that makes us to do the things that we should not be doing.
Right.
Right? So people, like smokers, people who smoke, they know that's bad, right? Why don't they just quit smoking? Because they have that craving,
Right.
that have they're habituated to that, they have that craving, so
Okay.
it makes them pull that.
Right.
Right? It's like they have no control. It is controlling them.
Yeah.
So it's similar to
I
that.
see.
And we have now that's one thing, right?
Yeah.
And then we are, habituated with the attachment, anger. We know that becoming angry is not, but then when somebody says something bad to us, we immediately become angry.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Right away.
Yeah.
And then when we see something beautiful, it says, oh, that's so nice. I wish I could have it. So that mind, attachment goes right away. Yeah, they can't control it. So if it's like, that's because we are used to that attachment. We are used to the attachment.
Right.
And when we see something beautiful, we immediately want to have it for us. So that's because of that habituation. It feels like we're drawn to that. But we know, oh, it's not good. That's even though it looks very good, but it is not going to last forever. It's not going to be beautiful all the time. someday it's going to turn, black or gray or something, and then it's no longer colorful, it's going to bring suffering. So, I mean, all these things that we can logically understand, but intellectually we can understand, but we don't think that because our attachment is so strong that it goes there. But if we have studied and says, okay, attachment is very, and if we have studied that, right? We study that, and then we practice that. It says, yes, I should not be doing that. Then our mind will not be that much attached. Then when we say something, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
What is the point of being attached?
Right.
And we have control now.
Right.
So we have the control now, right? So it says, okay, I don't need that. It's the same with like, I have a Toyota Corolla, and so that's a Camry. Maybe I want to have a Camry. Oh no, it's the same thing. Just like Corolla, this brings me to one place, and I can drive the same. So if you think like that, you will not have attachment for better things. So that is you have to train your mind, right? You have to practice, you have to meditate,
Right.
And then when your mind is, thinking that way, then it's okay, I'm satisfied with this,
Okay.
And so your attachment will not be not strong. So you are controlling your attachment. So that's why we say we have the free will.
Right.
We have the free will if we think in that way.
Right.
But if we will let it go and say, okay, of course, then we have no free will, so we are controlled by that.
But that requires practice,
Practice,
just like anything else, to train the mind.
Train the mind,
Yeah. Okay.
So you have to keep thinking, in that way.
Yeah.
Train the mind in that way.
Yeah.
Good. All right.
Are you going to be talking more about karma in the?
Yes.
Because it's such a complicated subject, and it's.
So this is an open question answer, so we can talk about anything.
Oh, okay.
Can we talk about
Talk
emptiness?
about anything.
We can talk. We can definitely talk, but I don't think it will be of much benefit.
Thanks
But
for
are you
shot
omniscient
of
though?
No, definitely not. No. I don't know what would be good, what would be bad. I don't know that. That's why I'm asking you.
I really want to talk about emptiness.
Okay. Good. Okay, we can talk next time. Okay.
Can I ask a question about
Yeah.
impermanence and death and all that kind of stuff right now?
Yeah,
I just
definitely.
need to know, what would be the best way to talk to small children if their great-grandparents die? With them being so attached to their great-grandparent and they're in the process of dying, do you tell them that they're dying, they go in to visit them and they know they're sick? What is the best way to maybe do this? So it, because even when the dog died, the child was in misery for a week, so it's like, this is a person and that was a dog, so what might be the best Buddhist way to kind of get them to?
Well, there's no Buddhist way or non-Buddhist way. Is skillful way.
Yeah.
So what skillful way you can find, to tell that person? It could be lie, it could be truth, it could be something nice, something harsh, I mean, it's all many different ways, right? So you can tell. But truth we all know. So what Buddhism tells is the truth. And then, of course, the skill is all different. The method, the way to tell is in many different ways. So you have to find what will be the best suited for that person. And of course, and then because like I talked about the skill, the skill I have may not be good enough, to talk to the person. But of course, if there was a Buddha, then Buddha will know exact skill, exact way. So okay, so if I tell this person this, even if it's a lie, if I tell this will help the person at that time. Therefore, okay, I'm going to tell this lie. So Buddha can do that, right? But I don't know, I don't know, maybe I can tell lie, but I don't know if that's going to be helpful. I don't know, I'm not omniscient. Buddha is omniscient, he knows exactly it's going to be helpful. So he can tell lie. And so, so you just have to find different ways, to tell what will be best, for that person at that time. If you're not omniscient, we can't really tell. There's no exact method, And so you can tell this way, you can tell that way. Which way it's going to work, I don't know exactly. Unless if you are omniscient.
Also, knowing their age probably helps a little bit.
That's right. Yes.
If you're talking
4.
4-year-old, they're still in,
Yeah.
they still believe in, I don't know, my
They're
fairies
lasting
and
forever.
Tinkerbell, yeah,
they're
exactly.
lasting forever. And
Yeah.
it's like, how do you talk about things don't last forever?
Yeah.
For a little kid, and people don't either. And
Yeah, yeah. No, of course, in how much understanding they have also, it
It's just
depends,
like a
right?
dog.
It depends how much they will understand. And if the child doesn't understand much and you talk all these big things, it would make no sense. Like you said, at that age.
And it depends their faith too, like, you
Yeah.
know, I come from a Catholic background, so like they would be telling them about
Exactly.
angels coming and, you know, carrying them, or whatever, you know.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about your grandfather. He's in a better place now.
Yeah,
and with the
yeah, he's
angels
with
and the
his
gods and
Family
all these
and all
things.
that
So
stuff,
you
yeah.
should be happy. So someday you can visit them and all this. So when you die.
I don't think that'd be the best.
So when my father passed away, it was very funny. I was a monk, right? So my father passed away. So I think I was a little bit maybe arrogant monk, So I'm a monk and he's a layperson. I should not make prostration to him. Yeah. So it's not that I thought that I should not make, but I said I don't know if I should make or not. And then one lady came, she said, "Hey, come on! He's your father. He's been very kind to you. You have to go and make prostration." I said, "Okay." So I went. I really thought, honestly, from my mind, I really prayed for him, to have a good rebirth, to be born as a human being, to have a good rebirth, to meet with a teacher, qualified teacher, and engage in the path, and then practice and become enlightened. So with that prayer, then I made prostration, three prostrations, and then I came out, right? And then there was this small kid. He came, he pulled my robe, and he said, everybody when they make prostration, all your family when they make prostration, they all cry so much. Why didn't you cry? I don't know.
Boy, there's an arahat
I couldn't
for
tell
you.
him.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell him like I tell you now, right?
Yeah.
It makes sense to you.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't have to cry. I prayed very well. I thought really well, and I made prostration with that thought. Do I have to cry? No. Right? You will understand it, but the kid will not understand, right? So I didn't know what to tell him, I was like, stop. I didn't say anything.
So you started crying.
So that was fun. But thinking about my father, of course, it was appropriate, and I should have thought also in that way, but I didn't know at that time. I was much younger. I was like 15 or 16 years old, and so my father was the first one to teach me the alphabet, the Tibetan alphabet. And so the alphabet again, in Tibetan Buddhism, the alphabets are related with the teachings. So the words, the teachings, the writings, the readings, all related with the teachings. So when somebody teaches you the alphabet, it's your guru also. So your guru, and you have to consider that person as a guru. So in that sense, my father is my guru, because he's the one, he's the first one to teach me the alphabet. So when I went to monastery, I already knew how to read, not like thoroughly, but of course I knew how to spell and the alphabets and everything already. And so much later, when I heard about this story of this monk, who couldn't get any realizations because he didn't meditate well on the guru devotion. So he's, if you it said that if the guru devotion, is the first realization. If you don't have that, then you will not have any other realizations. So, in order to have the later other realization, like the realization of emptiness, bodhichitta, renunciation, karma, impermanence, death, all these things, you have to have a guru devotion. And so this monk, couldn't have any realization because he forgot to meditate on the guru who taught him alphabet. And the reason, again, same like me, I was monk, he's a lay person, so how could I think of him as a guru? So just like that, he had that same thing. He says the person who taught him was a nun. So he was a monk, and this is a nun who taught him. So he couldn't think of her as his teacher. Of course, it will not make sense much, at this time here in this, developed country. But in Tibet, nuns were seen lower than the monks. And even during the time of Buddha, there was, of course, differences like that. And and so he never meditated on her as his guru, so he never had realization. And so now I have a picture of my father in my altar. And when I make prostrations and offerings to all the Buddhas, I'm making prostration to my father as well. And it was funny when one of my friend came and he says, "Who's that old Nepali guy there?"
Old Nepali guy.
So he's wearing this Nepali hat, and in his picture, and he's "Who's this old Nepali guy there on the altar?" This is my guru. Yeah. Anyway, so okay. So it depends on how you talk. That's just a story of my experience. So, I didn't know how to talk to that child, that kid, when he said that. I couldn't cry when my father passed away, but I cried seeing my mother cry. I was more sad for her. And for my mother, my sister, even my brother was crying when they were making prostration. I cried seeing them crying, but I never cried just because my father passed away. Interesting.
I had the same experience with my mother, who died in January. This past January.
January, wow.
I didn't cry for her, but I cried because I saw other people crying.
Yeah. I mean, also it makes sense, right? The person who has passed away is already passed away. It doesn't make any difference to cry for that person. Yeah, of course you feel sad. But then people who are living, they're going through that suffering. And then again you can say, okay, the person who died is going through even more suffering. So. Going in the intermediate state and maybe in the next life, to the lower realms and things like that. So you never know, right? But you see the people there, immediately people there, you in front of you crying and suffering so much. Of course, then you feel for them. The person who has passed away, we don't know where he's gone, so we don't get that much feeling because we don't see him. And then, okay.
Makes you appreciate that. For me, the visualization that yes, you're right in saying that you saw other people suffering, they were crying.
Yes.
But then the fact that what the Buddha says or what's said in Buddhism is that everyone's been our mother at some point, in our lives. So kind of again that interdependence.
That's true.
That breaking up of oneself. So anyway, that's
good. All right. Okay.
I have an unrelated question. Can you recommend a particularly calming meditation? I know they're all to kind of quiet the mind, but is there like a simple meditation that...
Well, I mean, simple can be like breathing meditation. So you know about that, right? Breathing meditation. Yeah. So So you can the main point of the breathing meditation is to calm your mind and not to be not to be like distracted. So like say for example, like when you're thinking about something, right? So you're thinking of something and then immediately you say, okay, meditate on bodhicitta. It will be impossible. So you're thinking about that person, that colleague of mine, that's how bad they were talking and what they were thinking. Your mind is going like that, and immediately you're here in the temple, and it says, okay, let's meditate on karma, or let's meditate on bodhicitta. That's not going to happen. Right. So first you have to calm your mind, bring it to the neutral state, and then from there, then you can take the place of the positive mind. So first, your mind is taken, the negative mind has taken the place in your mind. And then now to put the positive there is impossible. And so first you bring your mind to the neutral state, the quiet down, And for that, if you do breathing meditation, it's very helpful. So once my teacher told us, it's like you're tricking your mind. You're tricking your mind, by meditating on breathing, and doing a breath meditation on breathing, and you're tricking your mind, and so making it go away. Making the negative mind go away, and then positive mind come there.
How do
So like you say,
take
so
it
it says,
into
there's an example like you said, oh, April, somebody is trying to break into your car. You say, really? And then you go away, and then I take your seat quickly. So I sit in there. So that's like making the mind go away. So then you can put the place there. So if you want to sit, if I want to sit there, I can't sit while you're sitting there, right? So I tell you, oh, okay. I trick you to go away, and then I quickly sit on your seat. So it's the same like the mind. You tell the mind to go away by meditating on the breath, tricking the mind to go away, and then you bring the positive mind. And then on that, then you meditate on loving kindness and compassion. And so that will bring a peaceful mind. You were saying something else?
Well, what particular one? I know there's a few you can do with the breath.
Yes.
Or a few that I've heard of. What one would you recommend to try?
Well, breathing meditation, we call it a nine-round breathing meditation. So you just concentrate on the breath. So you sit there, don't think about anything, just focus on your breath. So you're breathing out, and then you're thinking you're breathing in, like that. So you do 3 times this way, 3 times this way, 6 times, and then 3 times both way, and that's 9 times. So if you can just do that, even for like a minute, that will help a lot. Of course, it's difficult at the beginning. That takes also some training, some habituation, familiarization. So first you do that, then maybe again immediately your mind will be thinking something else. You can't focus on the breath, and you'll be thinking of something else. So like breathing in, go like the mind, go like. So it happens. It happens a lot. If we are not used to, and so so then you keep on doing that. Keep on doing so. First you can try for a minute, and then after some time, then try for 2 minutes, and then 5 minutes, for 10 minutes, like that. So just meditate on that, for the beginning, at the beginning as much as possible. And also, it's important, to have that calm abiding, calm abiding or concentration mind. Without that, that's another thing. There's no way we can have any realizations. So you and me, if we think about some kind of realization in our life, if you are above 40, 50 years old, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult now. We can even maybe do some practice. Okay, I'm going to do this meditation, I'm going to do this practice, I'm going to do this prayer, I'm going to do this visualization. We can do all that. But realization is virtually impossible. I can't say completely impossible, but virtually impossible, because without calm abiding, no realization. So you have to have calm abiding to have that realization. So mind being able to focus on that, right? And so if you can't keep your mind thinking on that, how can you get familiar with that thought? If you don't get familiar with that thought, you can't have that realization. So to get that, calm abiding is very important. And and then breathing meditation helps a lot. And then after that, you can choose any object. And so you have to be able to sit. Your mind focus on that object. Can be a book, can be a table, can be a piece of stone, or a statue of a Buddha. And then you can just be able to focus on that without distraction for 5 to 6 hours. Really?
Okay.
So are you saying at 40, 50 years old or older, it's impossible to get to calm abiding time?
Very
Is
difficult.
that what you're saying?
Yes. I'm saying difficult. I'm not saying impossible. I'm saying virtually impossible means almost impossible. If you know the meaning of virtually impossible. It's difficult because it takes a lot of energy or a lot of hard work to do that. Hard work. Like to sit like this for. I can't do that now. If I was 20, 30 years old, maybe it would be easier, right? So after 40, 50 years, it's very difficult. And then after that, you say, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this, but I won't be able to fully accomplish that. And so just do it as much as you can to leave imprint. Right? More you do, more imprint you leave, even if you don't have realization. So it's very good to do. Keep on doing, and the next life maybe when you're younger you can start going to mountain and be able to do the meditations and gain the realization. And so it's that's what it is. So very difficult. If you're older, so you're still young, so you should do it while you're young. So while you're healthy and young, and it's it's good to do. Otherwise, difficult. Yeah. And I'm doing my practice just to not break my commitments. Too many commitments. So it's, I couldn't have to do that. How to do that? Yeah. So realization is really difficult without karma abiding, and so without meditation. So really good to do meditation. And start with breathing meditation first. Yeah. Okay. All right. I think we're all tired. Maybe not. Hopefully not as much and frustrated. So okay, we'll stop here, and let's do some dedication prayer. So turn to page 57. Prayer of dedication. So dedicate the merits that we have created by engaging in the discussion of the Dharma. Whatever merits, both karmas that were created. So let's dedicate for ourselves and all sentient beings to achieve enlightenment quickly. Through this virtue may I swiftly, having gained Guru Buddha state, blessed and every sentient being, without exception, in the state, precious supreme Bodhi mind, may it were unborn arise, and were born never decline, but increase forevermore. And also let's do the long life prayer of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. On page 43. In the snow mountain encircled land, source of every benefit and joy, may Lord Tenzin Gyatso Cheresi remain in life till samsara's end. And on page 49, short long life prayer for Lama Rinpoche. So as you know, Lama Rinpoche is the spiritual guide of this and many centers around the world. It's called FPMT. So please pray for a long life of Lama Rinpoche, so that numberless sentient beings can be benefited from his teachings and blessings and so forth. You who uphold the subduous moral way, who serve as the beautiful bearers of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Minjana's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplishes magnificent prayers honoring the three jewels, Savior of myself and others, the disciples, please speak on. Okay, so we'll all make 3 prostrations together. And again, if you're a Buddhist, then one of the commitment or precept is to make prostrations, right? 3 times in the morning, 3 times in the evening before you go to bed, after you wake up in the morning. Okay? Alright, so let's do 3 prostrations together. Even if you're not Buddhist, you can still do it. Namo namo menju shiri ye, namo su shiri ye, namo u namo shiri ye so. Namo menju shiri ye, namo su shiri ye, namo u namo shiri ye so. Namo menju shiri ye, namo su shiri ye, namo u namo shiri ye so. Okay, everybody. Good night.
Thanks, Dr.
See you next
Thank
time.
you.
Okay.
Do you need to put everything back? I don't know. Can we break them down? Today's Wednesday. I don't know if there's anything tomorrow. Tomorrow? Yeah, I think probably can leave everything. I don't know. Yeah.
So what's the decision?
I don't think there's anything happening all week, just sleep.
No.
And,
Sunday.
yeah, so it's Sunday,
As
actually.
well.
What's on Sunday?
It's teachings usually, but it'll be with Geshe Ten's way, it'll be
When we first turned on the
Friday.
green soda.
Well, I'll be in New York.